Alright, let's keep this Doctor Who review train rolling. I mean, it's not like any other trains in the UK have been running recently, have they? I've never liked this episode. I watched it maybe once before and thought it was an absolute train wreck. To this day, I still believe it's a train wreck. It's written by some bloke called Neil Cross, who apparently wrote the Luther series, which I wasn't a massive fan of either. Largely because of an ugly trend in TV cinematography where they thought it was cool to just cram every character into the bottom corners of the frame for some reason. That's less of a Neil Cross problem though. The real Neil Cross problem is that he was pitched to write 2 episodes of Who Series 7. The episode in question today was pitched to him after they finished filming his other episode, Hyde. Bear that in mind as we slog through this episode. I'm sorry, I genuinely can't take this opening seriously. It's so cheesy. I found myself wafting my hand in front of my face because it stinks that bad. The Doctor's nefarious stalking activity puts him back on the super creepy pedestal.
I love helping kids. I love kids, Charlie. I love kids.
Pim, I would really not be screaming that at the top of your lungs.
This dude nearly gets hit by a car traveling at like 2 miles an hour. Not only does this give him way too much time to react, and by extension destroys any and all tension, but also they couldn't even get the car's location in the street right continuity-wise, warping like that car that ran over Pete Tyler in the episode Father's Day.
So I've got something for you.
What?
God damn it, dude, that's the shittiest looking ring I've ever seen. All the dribble that comes out of the father's mouth leads to one of the most forced romantic moments in the show ever.
Which makes this the most important leaf in human history.
That's rubbish.
It doesn't tell us anything about him or Clara's mum that would make me care if she died. That being said, the death makes me wonder how much of an impact it truly had on Clara. This tragedy may have been the reason she felt compelled to help the family seen in The Bells of St. John, but it doesn't give us much indication of how other characters see this modern governess relationship. I can't really see the parents as being filled with characterization given the way they interact with the Doctor. A bloke who stood in front of a child's playground without any reason to be there, eagerly looking at their daughter. No alarm bells can be heard ringing, and it makes the parents look like pieces of cardboard.
She's not possible.
You might even say she's impossible. Clara's first off-world adventure sees her taken to the Rings of Akhaten out of 10. The Doctor's only just set up this new desktop background in the TARDIS and the set is already falling apart. Jesus, how did this shot make it into the final cut? The scene definitely has a certain charm to it, the origin of life in the universe, some nice CGI, and even how there is a certain element of belief to this idea adds mystery to the locale.
It's what they believe. It's a nice story.
The pair then show up at a bustling market where the entire costume cupboard's budget for Series 7B gets blown in about 10 seconds. Instead of having an outsider dictate who all these aliens are, the Doctor points them all out to her because he comes here all the time. The Doctor takes a basket of fruit and Clara grabs one and bites it. I was half expecting an alien to turn up and ask them to pay for it, but apparently everything's free here.
You didn't pay for that.
Crap. Maybe it's not free here.
Actually, that's not strictly true. In order to pay for a moped, an object of sentimental value must be offered.
That's horrible.
It's better than using bits of paper.
Then you pay.
With what?
You're 1,000 years old. You must have something you care about.
You know, for a first proper outing with the Doctor, I'm surprised a fact such as this was so easily accepted by Clara. It's moments like these where I feel like they gave up making her an actual character and just designated her as cardboard companion instead. It would be fine if she understood this after going through the Doctor's time stream, but that's a long way off.
You're 1,000 years old. You must have something you care about.
Apparently this comment was upsetting enough to the Doctor that he just decides to abandon her whilst she's looking at something else. This leads to her chasing after a child called the Queen of Years, a sacrifice to be made to a planet-sized monster. They seem to have removed the Doctor from this scene so that Clara doesn't have anybody to ask why a bunch of people in the place where life in the universe originated are speaking English. In reality, Matt Smith was just away filming pickups for another episode? Jesus, there's just not more evidence the producers didn't give one solid shit about this episode. The TARDIS translation graduation circuit does get acknowledged, just one episode too late in Cold War. Clara doesn't ask the child where her parents are or if she can confirm her identity as the Queen of Years, suggesting instead she could hide inside the TARDIS. Oddly, if they'd established her as being a teacher earlier instead of right at the end of this series, I'd have a bit more sympathy for her actions. Instead, the episode shrugs it off as her getting over her fear of being lost.
Oh, come on.
What's wrong?
I don't think it likes me.
I don't like you either.
This is the point in the tale where they actually make Clara curious to know about what's going on with this little girl. Apparently, she is some prodigy that knows every poem and song from this place's history, yet seems to be more concerned about getting her song right than the several entities that are pursuing her. In typical Clara fashion, she turns this issue around on herself. They suddenly establish that Clara's worst fear as a child was getting lost.
I got lost. Blackpool Beach, bank holiday Monday, about 10 billion people. I was about 6. My worst nightmare come true.
What's a bank holiday Monday?
So Clara didn't get lost on this planet she's never been to before because her mum will always be there and she will always find her.
Because I will always be here and I will always come and find you.
Yay! That's all well and good, but you'd think the mum would have said this to reassure her right after finding her, not when she's all tucked in bed later. This scene was so cheap and forced when all they had to do was show her getting lost, instead of having the whole thing awkwardly and nonsensically recounted by Clara to this little girl she's only just met. Also, how many times are they going to change the young Clara child actress? They could have at least got the eye colour right. I mean, Jesus Christ. I think the most frustrating aspect is how non-existent Clara's relationship with her father is. Given how attached to her mother they make her out to be, it seems strange we never learn how Clara feels about her father having what I presume is a new girlfriend or wife in the time of the Doctor. It would have made for decent drama had they actually given a shit about both her and her father as characters. The Doctor and Clara then show up abruptly before the start of this song recital. Murray Gold's haunting and ethereal score would set this up brilliantly had they decided against shunting in some awkward, nonsensical humour here. Kinda convenient that there just happened to be a gap in the audience right here too. Would it have been so hard for there to be a dialogue exchange between Clara and the priesty singing blokes? Thank you for getting her here on time. Would you like some VIP seats?
It's about to begin.
The singing is fine. It's kinda cool to think of Clara being dragged to a celestial congregation and being urged to sing along. Strangely, the singing man that is seen singing at the pyramid itself is that same bloke that was looking for the Queen earlier. They made it out like transport between the two places was unusual as hell, thanks in part to the panic of the child and the guilt Clara showed for putting the child in her place. Instead of acquiring the moped thing earlier, maybe what the Doctor was actually up to, the pair regurgitate the same conversation they had earlier, just with a bit more urgency.
Something valuable. I need something precious.
Then you pay.
With what?
You're 1,000 years old, you must have something you care about.
You're 1,000 years old. Well, you must have something. Well, the places you've seen, there must be something.
This, and I don't want to give it away because it comes in handy.
Maybe Clara's got that saliva-coloured leaf. That would fit the bill.
It's my mum's.
Oh, Jesus. You've got to be kidding me. So, the pair zoom off to chase after the Queen, who honestly looks hilarious getting dragged to hell by her ass into that door frame. Holy shit. The pair make their way through a door that changes its lock a million squillion times a second because fuck it, why not? Leaving the Doctor to stand in a door frame holding it up for an awkwardly long amount of time.
Did you just lock us in?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Saul Goodman.
Since when was it established that this was a one-way door? We just saw you open it. Just reopen it again when you need to. For some reason, the Queen decides to telepathically pin Clara to the glass just as the singing bloke decides to fuck off. Both he and the masked dudes have the power of instant Pip-Boy teleportation, yet they took the time to transport the Queen over slowly and hilariously. So the old god alarm clock has woken up, and he looks like literally every other alien they threw into this episode. With the exception that he has a nice set of pearly whites.
Best teeth in the fucking game.
It's so frustrating as well that they put in so much effort to design these prosthetic aliens but took about 10 seconds to think up a character for only one of them. Talk about department conflicts. It's funny to think how memorable all the creatures from the End of the World episode were compared to those in this episode. Why was that? Oh yeah, some of them actually had characterization and function within the story. All the while that this alien is being weird behind Clara, the Doctor decides to tell the Queen his version of the origin of the universe, centralizing it on her creation on the atomic level. It's nice, but he does it in such a creepy fashion. Why would this girl believe a single thing he says? Is he not a heretic for talking this way about the old god? If this Pip-Boy priest was so intent on feeding the Queen to the old god, you'd think he'd stick around to make sure the job was done, but he never shows up again in this episode. Conveniently, as the Doc finishes his story, the old god alarm clock breaks the glass. I get that they were going for a Lovecraftian idea with this old god thing, and that the unknown is the bedrock of fear, which I suppose kept me interested in a tiny way. The idea of this monster eating a young child is frightening, but given how lackluster and non-threatening the antagonistic forces had been up until this point, I couldn't really appreciate anything that was going on. Blimey, that's got to be some concussion right there. The Doctor and these weirdos have a sonic battle of some kind. The Queen just walks right through this danger zone without being caught in the crossfire. The girl sings a secret song which magically opens a door, and then the pair run right through the danger zone again. Oh my god. Seriously, why didn't one of these three teleport behind the Doctor and throw him into another wall? Or maybe teleport to block their exit? Or anything to make this absolute slog of a scene more exciting? After taking his sweet-ass time, the old god alarm clock breaks the glass with the Doctor and girls ready to escape, waking up the planet monster with a great big face that looks like a fucking pumpkin. Now let me think. What was that plot device that got Clara and the Queen conveniently out of a sticky situation last time? Oh yes. Time for another sing-song!
Can you hear them singing?
The Doctor's diagnosis for the planet is to spew out these orange tendrils so it can eat his memories. And the Doctor figures this out based on a colossal pile of conjecture he's made about this creature during this waffly monologue. Smith is acting his arse off for sure, but the dialogue lets the whole thing down. When we all thought the episode was done and over though, the planet just comes back, and so does Clara, armed with that fucking book. I guess this explains the red satchel she's been carrying around all day. I guess it's good that she's moving on from her mourning, but Christ, this whole thing feels so contrived. The planet then shrinks into nothingness, leaving the entire system in the dark. We cut to Clara being dropped off back home, and I appreciate what Clara says about traveling, even if she was only gone for like 40 minutes or so. Just the idea of home looking and feeling different after going away for a length of time, I can relate to that. Even more interesting was Clara confronting the Doctor for his stalkerish antics around her mother's grave. The Doctor strangely claims Clara reminds her of a dead person, presumably Amy, who in turn says,
"I'm not a bargain basement stand-in for somebody else. I'm not going to compete with a ghost."
Which I thought was kind of interesting for her character, but also it's kind of a heartless thing to say. I get the idea. She's sacrificed her sentimentality and moved on. He should too. This does somewhat contradict with the idea of everyone wanting to give Clara back her ring.
They wanted you to have it.
Who did?
Everyone. All the people you saved.
Firstly, it was Doreen who took it off her, who wasn't even at the song recital. How did one creature become everyone? I'll remind you, they didn't write characters in this story. They just had to get Clara's backstory done and out of the way before you can say Geronimo. So, did it suck? Yep. This episode is absolute piss. This will thankfully be the last time I have the misfortune of watching this episode. The opening sets things off in such a foul state, the special effects are hit and miss, the story is okay but a little uninspired and doesn't develop Clara enough to make her feel like a unique character. There's clearly talent trying to break through, but the insurmountable amount of garbage that is piled up in this episode makes it almost unbearable to watch. I give the Rings of Akhaten a 2 out of 10.